Starting calisthenics. Introduction. Calisthenics is a form of exercise that leverages your body weight as resistance to build muscle and strength. Recently, it's become very popular, especially among young people, because you don't have to spend any money on gym equipment to build strength and muscle. The only equipment you need to have is your body weight, which is always available to you. It's hard to even imagine when it's not available to you. Maybe only on the moon or underwater, but hopefully you don't find yourself in places like that too often. To give you a few examples, the most basic calisthenics exercises are push-ups, pull-ups, and squats. With just these three exercises, you can significantly transform your body while investing minimal time and money, making calisthenics one of the most cost-effective training methods. This is the first video of my attempt to create a mini-series called Starting Calisthenics, where I'll try to share my knowledge about the basics of calisthenics in a very simple and practical way, so that you can drastically change your body within the next year. Okay, but who am I to talk about this? I started doing calisthenics 5 years ago, during COVID, when we were all forced to stay at home. While many people used that time to mess up their physique, I used it to improve mine. Out of boredom, I decided to start training, and since all the gyms were closed, I had to train using my body weight. In short, over the past 5 years, I've transformed my physique with the help of calisthenics, and now I want to help you do the same. This first video is meant only as an introduction to this mini-series, while in the upcoming videos, I'll provide you with practical information to help you create your own training program and achieve your goals without spending a single cent. Sounds good? Then stick around. Starting calisthenics. Key terms. Before we start creating a training program, we first need to understand some key terms of training program design. Here's a list of terms and their definitions. An exercise is a movement that's performed to develop a specific physical attribute. In our case, it's primarily strength and muscle mass. An isolation exercise is an exercise that involves just one muscle or muscle group, a pelican curl for example. A compound exercise is an exercise that involves multiple muscle groups at once, a pull-up for example. A repetition is a single complete movement of an exercise. If you do a push-up, you've completed one repetition of a push-up. A set is multiple repetitions completed one after another. If you do 10 push-ups in a row, you've completed one set worth of 10 push-ups. Intensity is the amount of resistance. In the gym, you can easily conceptualize intensity as the amount of weight you're lifting, but in calisthenics, it's the progression you're using. To give you an example, knee push-ups are less intense than regular push-ups. Failure is the inability to perform another repetition with good technique. If you do 10 pull-ups and are unable to do the 11th one with good technique, you've reached failure after 10 reps. Relative effort is the proximity to failure. If you hit failure 10 reps, a set of 4 reps will lead to a very low relative effort, while a set of 9 reps will lead to a very high relative effort. A working set is a set that is performed to stimulate adaptations, or in other words, a set close to failure. A warm-up set is a set that is performed to warm up your body for the upcoming working sets. Volume is the amount of training you're doing, which is usually measured as a number of working sets. Frequency is the amount of workouts you do in a given time period, usually a week. Hypertrophy is an increase in muscle size, and the goal of hypertrophy training is to build muscle. Strength is the ability to produce force, and the goal of strength training is to make you stronger. A microcycle is the smallest unit of training time, which usually is a week long. An accumulation phase is several consecutive microcycles. A deload is a light microcycle designed to reduce fatigue while preserving adaptations. And a mesocycle is a combination of an accumulation phase and a deload phase, usually lasting 6 to 12 weeks. More for beginners, less for advanced athletes. I know, that's quite a lot of terms, but just by understanding half of them, you'll still be more knowledgeable than most people doing calisthenics. Starting calisthenics. Exercise selection. Exercises are the building blocks of your training program, so choosing the right exercises is the most important thing you should do. Okay, but how do you do that? If you're a complete beginner, which this video is meant for, you should start with basic calisthenics exercises. These exercises will slap some serious beef onto your bones, as they have a large range of motion, involve multiple muscle groups, and are easily scalable. Okay, but what are these exercises? These exercises are divided in 2 categories: push and pull. Push exercises train your chest, front delts and triceps, and they're push-ups, dips, and pike push-ups, while pull exercises train your back and biceps, and they're pull-ups and rows. Okay, but what about legs? You should know that calisthenics and leg training don't really go together, but if you still wish to combine them, you can do pistol squats or Bulgarian split squats. You could also do regular squats, but since they're not intense enough for most people, removing one leg from the equation is a better option. Now that you know all the basic calisthenics exercises, I'll give you a brief demonstration of each. To do a push-up, get into a high plank with your hand shoulder width apart. Slowly lower your body to the ground. Briefly pause and push yourself back up. To make it easier, you can either do it on an elevated surface or on your knees. To do a dip, get into a support hold on parallel bars. Slowly lower your body as deep as you comfortably can. Briefly pause and push yourself back up. To make it easier, put your legs on the bars in front of you. To do a pike push-up, get into a high plank and walk your feet closer to your hands so that your butt is in the air. Then slowly lower your head toward the ground. Briefly pause and push yourself back up. To make it easier, elevate your hands above the ground. To do a pull-up, hang from a bar. Pull yourself up so that your chin is over it and slowly lower yourself back down. To make it easier, find a low bar and place your feet on the ground in front of you. To do a row, find a low bar and get underneath it while keeping your body straight. Then pull your chest to the bar and slowly straighten your arms. The higher the bar, the easier this exercise will be. To do a pistol squat, stand on one leg and hold on to something so that you don't have to worry about balance. Then slowly squat down as low as you can. Briefly pause and get back up. And to do a Bulgarian split squat, stand on one leg and place your other leg on an elevated surface behind you. Squat down until your back knee touches the ground and get back up. Starting calisthenics. Technique basics. If we compare training to chopping wood, then technique is the axe you use. The better your axe, the faster you chop wood, and the same goes with training. The better your technique, the faster you reach your desired result, which in our case is a muscular physique. Okay, so what is good technique? A good technique for muscle growth consists of 4 parts. Full range of motion, controlled eccentric, pause in the stretched position, and a fast concentric. Full range of motion means moving through the entire range of motion that an exercise is offering you. In our case, it's fully bending and straightening your arms and legs. If you don't use full range of motion, you simply won't be strong throughout it, increasing your risk of injury in the parts of the range of motion that you usually skip. You won't activate all muscle fibers, which may result in less muscle growth, and you'll have a harder time tracking your performance, as each rep won't have a clear starting and ending point. A controlled eccentric means lowering your body under control. In pushing exercise, this is where you bend your arms, while in pulling exercise, this is where you straighten them. This actually is the most stimulative portion of the movement, so letting gravity take care of it is not a good idea. Just don't get me wrong, it doesn't need to be 5 seconds long. Just control it and don't let your body go into a free fall. Your tendons and other connective tissues will thank you, as doing so will not only increase the stimulus, but also decrease the risk of injury. A pause in the stretched position is a short pause in the bottom of the rep, when the target muscle is maximally stretched. In pushing exercise, this is where your arms are bent, while in pulling exercise, this is where your arms are straight. Stretch under load is quite stimulative by itself, so skipping it is not recommended. Just know that this pause doesn't need to be long. Even half a second is enough. Just try to feel the target muscle being stretched in the bottom of each rep. Pro tip, when doing push-ups, you can elevate your hands to allow a deeper stretch on your chest. And a fast concentric means lifting your body explosively. In pushing exercise, this is where you straighten your arms, while in pulling exercise, this is where you bend them. Performing this part explosively activates more of your fast twitch muscle fibers, which have the greatest growth potential. In short, good technique looks like this: slow eccentric, pause in the stretched position, and a fast concentric through a full range of motion. Compared to bad technique, the difference is huge. Yeah, with bad technique you will be able to do more reps or use a harder progression, but would that lead to more muscle growth? You wish. Remember that your goal is to stimulate the target muscle. How many reps you do or which progression you use is secondary. Starting calisthenics. Choosing intensity. Intensity is the amount of resistance your muscles are working against during an exercise. In the gym, this is the weight you lift, but in calisthenics, it's the progression you use. If in regular push-ups you're pushing around 60% of your body weight, in knee push-ups you're only pushing about 40%. This means regular push-ups are more intense than knee push-ups because you're pushing a larger fraction of your body weight. Okay, but how do you choose the right intensity for you? Simple. If you can't do at least 5 reps with good form of a certain progression, it's too hard for you. But if you can do more than 30 reps, it's too easy for you. Of course, 4 or 31 reps will still stimulate muscle growth, but if you stray too far outside the 5 to 30 rep range, you will run into a few problems. Let's start with issues of training under 5 reps per set, of course, while also being close to failure. The first issue is that each set will be so fatiguing that you won't be able to do enough sets to stimulate maximum muscle growth. If you've ever done a 1 rep max deadlift, you know how physically immensely draining that is, and how many of those could you realistically do? Maybe 5, which would only total 5 reps. Yes, your muscles will be stimulated, but if you do 3 sets of 5 reps instead, they'll be stimulated just as much while producing 2 to 3 times less fatigue. The second problem is a high risk of injury. Since an injury while working out is literally your body being unable to handle a weight, lifting very heavy weight is naturally more injurious. Of course, if you use good technique and properly warm up, the injury risk is still very low, but heavy lifting still increases it. Okay, but what's wrong with doing sets of over 30 reps? The first issue is that they're simply not intense enough to maximally stimulate muscle growth. This is pretty obvious. Just like you can't build big legs by walking, you won't build huge arms with big dumbbells. You need to lift relatively heavy weights to grow muscle. There's no way around this. The second issue is that it's hard to reach true failure because the burning feeling in your muscles becomes too uncomfortable. If you're doing sets over 30 reps, chances are that you'll stop because you can't handle the burn, not because you've actually hit failure. This is a problem for muscle growth, since training close to failure is crucial, and if the burning sensation prevents you from getting there, then you need to increase the weight. This all means one thing: if you can do only 2 regular push-ups but 10 knee push-ups, then knee push-ups are the better choice for you, and vice versa. If you can do 35 knee push-ups, then they're too easy, and it's time to move on to regular push-ups. Starting calisthenics. Choosing relative effort. Relative effort is the proximity to failure of any given set. And what is failure? Failure is the inability to perform another repetition repetition with good technique. If you do 10 pull-ups and are unable to do the 11th one with good technique, you reach failure after 10 reps. This means that if you hit failure at 10 reps, a set of 2 reps will result in a very low relative effort, while a set of 9 reps will result in a very high relative effort. In short, the closer to failure you train, the higher your relative effort is. Okay, so how high should your relative effort be? Should you annihilate your muscles in every set, or should you leave some reps in reserve? To understand this, here's a graph that represents how your relative effort influences stimulus and the stimulus to fatigue ratio. Stimulus is the signal for muscle growth, while the stimulus to fatigue ratio is the amount of stimulus relative to the amount of fatigue. The higher the stimulus and the lower the fatigue, the better this ratio and the more efficient your training is. By training very far away from failure, the stimulus and the stimulus to fatigue ratio are very low, but at the 4 to 5 rep in reserve mark, both of them shoot up. Stimulus continues increasing all the way to failure and even past it, while the stimulus to fatigue ratio reaches its peak at 2 reps in reserve and then quickly drops. This happens because stimulus starts rising exponentially slower, while fatigue starts rising exponentially faster. In short, always training to failure isn't a good long-term strategy, as the tiny amount of extra stimulus is not worth a huge amount of extra fatigue. This means the following: instead of trying to maximize the stimulus by going to failure, we have to be smarter and try to maximize the stimulus to fatigue ratio by leaving some reps in reserve. Okay, but how would this look like in practice? Well, since your body is extremely sensitive to training, your first week of training should shoot for about 4, maybe 5 reps in reserve. Of course, you're not gonna know exactly how many reps that is, but just stop the set once it starts feeling like a challenge. If the first 10 push-ups felt like a breeze, but the 11th one starts feeling tough, and the set at 11 push-ups. Every single set in the first week should look like this. Challenging, but nothing too crazy. However, as your body adapts, your relative effort must increase. If 11 push-ups in the first week were stimulative, in the second week they're not gonna be as stimulative, so you need to do 12 reps. The amount of reps you do should increase every week, and once you reach the point where you're no longer able to do more reps, you reach your maximum recoverable volume. I'll talk more about this in the next video, but just know this. Start training at around 4 to 5 reps in reserve, and add a rep or 2 every week until you're no longer able to do so. For most beginners, this should take about 6 to 12 weeks. Starting calisthenics. Choosing volume. Volume is the amount of training you're doing, which is measured as the number of working sets. And what is a working set? A set designed to stimulate muscle growth, close to failure, and in the 5 to 30 rep range. Okay, so how many working sets should you be doing? As many as you can benefit and recover from. But how many sets is that? To understand this, let me introduce you to the volume landmarks: MV, MEV, MAV, and MRV. MV stands for maintenance volume, which is the amount of volume you need to do to maintain your gains. MEV stands for minimum effective volume, which is the minimum amount of volume you need to do to grow muscle. MAV stands for maximum adaptive volume, which is the amount of volume that will lead to the most muscle growth. And MRV stands for maximum recoverable volume, which is the most volume your body can recover from. This means that to grow any muscle, you must train above your MEV and under your MRV. Anything under your MEV will simply not stimulate adaptations, while anything over your MRV will exceed your body's recovery ability. Not only that, to grow the most muscle, you need to train at your MAV. But there's one problem. MAV is mobile, meaning it can be located anywhere in the range from your MEV to your MRV, depending on your body's adaptive resistance. You see, when you start training for the first time ever, or after a long layoff, your body is extremely sensitive to training, which means that it doesn't need a huge stimulus to create adaptations. Even 2 sets might get you sore for 2 days, so your MAV at the start is very low, right around your MEV. However, as you continue training, your body develops adaptive resistance, which means that it needs a bigger stimulus to continue creating adaptations. If 6 sets was your MAV in week 1, then it's likely that 8 sets will be your MAV in week 2. This increase in volume should occur almost every week until you reach a point where you're no longer able to recover in time for your next workout. And what does not being able to recover mean? Not being able to repeat your previous performance 2 workouts in a row. 1 day off might be a fluke, but 2 in a row is a clear sign of excessive fatigue. This marks the point when you reach your MRV and the end of your accumulation phase. There's no more productive training to be done ahead, as your MAV has exceeded your MRV, so the only logical course of action is getting your MAV back down to your MEV by taking time off from hard training and starting all over. In short, your training should look like this. Start at MEV, slowly progress up to your MRV, deload and repeat. Okay, but how can I find my MEV? Simple. If a certain amount of volume gives you a great bump and makes you sore the next day, you're likely doing enough sets to stimulate muscle growth. The most important thing now is being able to recover for your next workout, as that means that you're under your MRV. If you're training each muscle group 2 to 3 times per week, then 5 to 10 weekly sets for each muscle group would be a great starting point. If you don't experience any soreness or strength loss, you can add sets next week, but if you're still sore in your next workout, you should tone it down for a bit. If you're still clueless whether you should add sets next week, pause and look at this table, which bases set addition on your performance and soreness. Starting calisthenics. Choosing frequency. Frequency is the number of workouts you do in a given time period, usually a week. Since volume is usually measured on a weekly basis, frequency is how we divide it. You can do all of your weekly volume in one session or spread it out by doing just one set per session and anything in between. Okay, so how should we divide our weekly volume? To answer this question, we have to answer the following questions. How many sets you should do per workout and how long you should wait before your next workout. When starting a new mesocycle, the recommended volume per workout is 2 to 4 sets per muscle group. Yes, your muscles will grow if you do just 1 or as many as 5 or more sets, but not as effectively as possible. By doing just 1 set per workout, you'll have to do an excessive number of workouts and spend a lot of time warming up, while doing 5 or more sets per workout may cause excessive muscle damage, leading your body to spend more resources on recovery instead of actual muscle growth. Okay, so at the start of a mesocycle, you should do 2 to 4 sets per workout. But how long should you wait before the next workout? Can you train the very next day, or should you wait a bit longer? You should wait as long as it takes for your body to recover, which means 2 things. Your performance is back to usual and your muscles are no longer sore. If you start with 2 to 4 sets per muscle group, this should take roughly 2 to 3 days. By training sooner, you'll simply dig yourself in a hole and accumulate excessive fatigue, but by training later, you'll just piss away time that could be spent training. Putting both answers together, we can conclude the following. To stimulate the most muscle growth, you should train each muscle group 2 to 3 times per week. If you're a complete beginner, you can get away with training each muscle group just once per week. But the more experienced you become, the more frequently you'll need to train to keep building muscle. This is mostly because a higher training frequency allows you to squeeze in more weekly volume, but that's a discussion for another time. Starting calisthenics. Warming up. Warming up is the process of preparing your body for physical exertion, and from the perspective of injury prevention, it's the most important part of the workout. By doing it, you literally warm up your muscles and connective tissues, which increases their flexibility and reduces the risk of tears, and wake up your nervous system for force production. Just like you shouldn't floor the gas pedal on a cold engine, you shouldn't train with a cold body. Bad things can happen. Okay, so how do you warm up properly? Is a little jogging and stretching enough? No. To warm up effectively, you need to do a specific warm-up. Okay, but what does that look like? Exactly like the exercise you're warming up for, just at a lower intensity and very far away from failure. Unlike general warm-up exercises that warm up the whole body, specific warm-up exercises warm up specifically the structures you'll need to use for the upcoming working sets. For each of the basic calisthenics exercises, you can find easier progressions in episode 3 of this mini-series, so definitely check it out to know which exercise you can use to warm up. To give you an example, let's say the first working set of your workout is 10 push-ups. The first warm-up set could be 10 push-ups on an elevated surface at stomach level. The second set could be 5 push-ups on a surface at knee height, and the third could be 3 push-ups on the floor. As you can see, each warm-up set increases in intensity to gradually prepare your body for the workload. If you're going to do another pushing exercise after push-ups, then just one warm-up set will be enough, since your pushing muscles are already warm. But for the first exercise of each muscle group, you should do at least 2 warm-up sets, just like I demonstrated. And now listen very carefully. Every warm-up set needs to be done with perfect technique. Yes, I know warming up is boring, and you just want to start training, but warming up with perfect technique ensures that your working sets will have the best technique possible, because warming up doesn't just literally warm up your body, it also reinforces a good technique. Starting calisthenics. Rest between sets. Rest between sets is just that. The time you spend resting between sets. It's quite obvious that you can't do one set after another without resting, but what's not obvious is how long to rest between them. Should you rest for 1, 2, 3, or even 5 minutes? Neither. You should rest as long as it takes for your body to recover. In this context, recovery means 4 things: target muscle recovery, cardiorespiratory system recovery, nervous system recovery, and synergist recovery. Once all 4 of these systems are recovered, you're ready to go. Target muscle is the muscle or muscle group you're training. If you just finished a set of push-ups and your chest is still burning, you're not recovered yet. The cardiorespiratory system is a combination of the cardiovascular and respiratory system. If you just finished a set of rows and you're still breathing heavily, you're not recovered yet. The nervous system is your body's control center, which sends signals to your muscles to make them contract. If you just finished a set of dips and you just feel weak and sluggish, you're not recovered yet. And synergists are muscles that assist the target muscle during an exercise. If you just finished a set of pull-ups and your forearms are still on fire, you're not recovered yet. In short, you're ready to do another set when you can check off 4 boxes. The target muscle feels fine. Your breathing is under control. You feel strong and all supporting muscles feel fine. This ensures that the limiting factor in the following set will be the target muscle, not any of the other systems. For basic calisthenics exercises, the typical rest time will be 2 to 4 minutes, but this time can vary greatly between individuals. And yes, you can rest even longer, but just know that doing so will make your workout longer without adding much benefit. Starting calisthenics. Fatigue management. Fatigue is a disruption to body systems that occurs with all stimulative training. If we compare training to cooking, stimulus is the food and fatigue is the mess. Just like it's impossible to cook anything without making a mess, it's impossible to stimulate muscle growth without accumulating any fatigue. So instead of avoiding it, we need to learn how to manage it. And how can we do that? Of course, we can clean up the mess, but the process starts by not creating a huge mess in the first place. To do that, you need to consume enough calories, get enough sleep and relaxation, use good technique, start training with a low relative effort and volume, and take enough days off during the week. Adhering to each of these points will help you accumulate as little fatigue as possible. But here's the catch. No matter how perfectly you adhere to them, fatigue will inevitably get out of hand. This is because when training is hard and frequent enough to promote the best gains, fatigue per session is so high that it doesn't fall back down to zero before the next session. It accumulates. You can think of it like this. Each workout adds a splash of water to the total fatigue pool, and once the pool is overflowing, you need to take some water out before you can continue splashing more water in. Okay, but how can I know when the fatigue pool is overflowing? By tracking your performance and seeing when it plateaus for 2 workouts in a row. One day off might be a fluke, but 2 in a row is a clear sign of excessive fatigue. If you start with a reasonable volume relative effort and slowly increase them, this should take you roughly 6 to 12 weeks. This marks the point when you've reached your maximum recoverable volume, and since there's no more productive training to be done ahead, you need to decrease your fatigue before continuing to train. And how can you do that? Simple, by taking time off from hard training. Your body naturally decreases your fatigue, so all you have to do is stop adding extra fatigue. This part of the mesocycle is called a deload, which usually is a week long, and during it you can either train very little or not train at all. By training very little, you'll essentially just maintain your gains during this time, but by not training at all, you might lose some gains. Which option you choose is up to you. Okay, but how little should I train? It's difficult to say precisely, but the easiest method is to simply cut your sets and reps in half and do 2 total sessions. If you did 14 sets of 10 push-ups in the last week of your mesocycle, do 7 sets of 5 push-ups during the deload. If you finish a deload workout thinking this was too easy, you're doing it right. Starting calisthenics, creating a program. Now that you know the theory behind creating a training program, let's put it into practice and actually create it together. The first step is exercise selection. As you should know, there are 3 exercise categories: push, pull, and legs. Push exercises include push-ups, dips, and pike push-ups, and they train your chest, front delts, and triceps. Pull exercises include pull-ups and rows, and they train your back and biceps. And leg exercises include pistol squats and Bulgarian split squats, and they train your legs. I'll include leg training in this program, but since most calisthenics athletes skip them anyways, me included, I won't judge you if you decide to skip them too. Okay, so I'll choose 2 exercises from each category: push-ups and dips, rows and pull-ups, and pistol squats and Bulgarian split squats. The second step is choosing intensity. If with a given progression you can do at least 5, but no more than 30 reps, it's suitable for you. If not, choose a different progression by watching the exercise selection chapter of this mini-series. The third step is choosing relative effort. At the start, your relative effort should be quite low, about 4 to 5 reps in reserve, or difficulty level of 7 out of 10. So in the first week, stop all of your sets when they start feeling challenging. If you are unsure, leave more reps in reserve than fewer, because training too hard in the first week is the last thing you should be doing. The fourth step is choosing volume. At the start, your volume should also be quite low, about 5 to 10 sets per week for each exercise category. If you're completely untrained, you can even do fewer sets, but this will be a good starting point, so I'll choose 6 sets per week for each exercise category. The fifth step is choosing frequency. To maximize muscle growth, each muscle group should be trained 2 to 3 times per week, so I'll do 3 total workouts, training each exercise category twice. The first workout will be push and pull, the second will be pull and legs, and the third will be legs and push. In short, this is what the first week of my calisthenics training program looks like. 3 total workouts, and each exercise category is trained twice per week with 2 exercises, 6 sets, in the 5 to 30 rep range and 4 to 5 reps short of failure. Starting calisthenics, executing a program. Now that we've created a training program, all that's left to do is talk about how to execute it. The first week is quite simple. Perform each exercise with your chosen progression for 3 sets in the 5 to 30 rep range, stopping about 4 to 5 reps short of failure. If my first exercise is the push-up, I warm up and choose a suitable progression. Let's say it's incline push-ups at knee height, and perform as many reps as I can until I feel like I'm straining and my reps are slowing down. Once this happens, I stop the set, write down how many reps I did, rest, and then perform the next set and exercise in the same way. To give you an example, here's how the first completed week of my training program looks like. Okay, but what do I do next? Everything stays the same, except your relative effort and volume goes up. You can increase your training volume by adding 1 set to each exercise category, and relative effort by adding 1 rep to each set. So compared to the first week, in the second week I'll do 7 sets per exercise category and add 1 extra rep to every set. Your reps should be going up every week no matter what, while your sets should go up only if you're easily able to recover between workouts. This increase in volume volume relative effort should occur every week, until after 6 to 12 weeks you reach a point where you're no longer able to add an extra effort to workouts in a row. Once this happens, you've reached your maximum recoverable volume, and since continuing to train is absolutely pointless, you should take a deload week, in which you reduce both training volume relative effort by 50% and do only 2 total workouts. Once the deload week has ended, I can congratulate you. You've completed your first mesocycle. Now you can start the next mesocycle just like you did the previous one, but since you'll be stronger, you can start with more reps or harder progression. And just don't think you have to start where you left off. Start at around 4 to 5 reps in reserve and 5 to 10 sets for each exercise category. Okay, so that's about everything you need to know about creating and executing a calisthenics training program. Just keep in mind that the program I created is just a sample program to give you an example. It's not the exact program that you have to follow. By using all of the information I laid out for you in the previous episodes, you're more than qualified to create your own training program. As sad as it may sound, this mini-series has come to an end, so I hope that you'll learn something useful here, and see you in the next videos. Peace!